Hi there, my name is Renee Hobbs, and welcome to the UnClassroom. That's COM 410. It's the fall 2014 semester, and I'm here with two students from COM 410. That's Alan and Sarah. Hopefully, over the course of the next 40 minutes or so, other students will join us. Today's date is Thursday, October 9th, and you guys know that I was stuck in an airplane in Cleveland, Ohio yesterday, just getting onto the airplane as I was supposed to be having class with you. So thanks for hanging with me. And tonight we have really not the agenda, but I want to talk over with you. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we are at our class website. That's UnClassroom URI.wordpress.com. So we'll kind of do an overview of what our strategy is for tonight. Those of you who are just watching can see that if you want to join the live Google Hangout, you can just click here, and it'll take you right to where we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the questions you have about the Interview a Rhode Island Educator project and your final project. I'm going to do a quick talk through of some key ideas, kind of a little mini lecture on Howard Rheingold's chapters 5 and 6, which I think are so completely relevant to the final project that you're working on. We're going to talk a little bit more about the big picture in terms of our public awareness campaign to advance digital learning in Rhode Island. And I'm going to share with you some cool building blocks or low-hanging fruit opportunity that you and your partner might want to take advantage of as you develop your strategy. We have a pretty light agenda for the non-synchronous part of the class. We're going to take a look at this really cool video about the future of learning in a networked society. We're going to try to coordinate our communication strategy so that we don't all do the same thing, because that wouldn't be effective. And I'm going to share with you a short little document that will help you with your first deliverable for your final project. That's the email to the instructor with your project proposal. So that's all we have on the agenda tonight. So it's not too difficult. Just let me remind you that if you ever want to navigate around in the website, it's pretty useful for you to go up here to the top to check out these tabs, right, which really have all the details you need to know. So for instance, the assignments that we're working on, we've got two assignments that are kind of running a little bit parallel. The first one, which is called Interview a Rhode Island Educator. Let me just see if I can get that, there we go, to format properly. Can you guys see that now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Good show. So this is an individual project. Each of you will interview a Rhode Island educator who is a key individual developing digital learning in a school or library context. And you're going to create a no longer than 3 minute, a 2 to 3 minute video that describes his or her work. We have given you the names of some potential subjects, and some of you have found your own folks as well. So as part of the communication campaign, this is like one component of the campaign. We're trying to help people understand the way Rhode Island educators are integrating digital learning into their work. So you should take a look at Renee's Ready, Set, Create guide to think through the stages of the production process. Now, if you work on this as an individual project, that's great. If you have a partner, that's actually probably better. A lot of times creativity is best supported through collaboration. Your first deadline was this week, where I asked you to write a blog about your educator. Now you're going to start to be moving into the production process where you think through, how am I going to use images, language, and sound to communicate my message? And I do want you to review the criteria for evaluation. How am I going to grade this this project, it's worth 200 points or 20% of your class grade. So take a look at the criteria for evaluation below, because you have to have a blog that provides useful, interesting, and meaningful information about the key individual and helps educators visualize what learning entails, digital learning entails, and why it's important. You have to have a YouTube video that's embedded on that blog page, right? Basically, your work has to look pretty professional. Your blog should be well written and well organized and compelling, and it should reflect an understanding of what you're learning about digital learning, right? So you should try to do some synthesis of some of the ideas that you've been experiencing in the class. Now, before we move on, I wonder if Sarah, you or Alan have questions, because if you think about it, you guys are kind of I don't know, you're representing the whole class, right? So maybe questions that you think other students might have would be good for you to answer now. We're talking about that assignment called Interview a Rhode Island Educator. What questions do you have?
Well, I know a few of my classmates on Twitter, they were asking, you know, what is due? And I myself had to go back to the home and assignments for what was due today.
Yep.
And that was the questions that we had for the educator we chose, and we just put that into a Word blog and inform you, right, about the educator and the questions, and hopefully getting some answers.
Yep. I'm not going to grade the blog until the due date for the whole project, which is November 3rd. But okay. I find it very useful for when I hire people. The reason why I'm a good manager is that I require intermediate deliverables. That means I know that you can't do your best work if you wait till the last minute, and so today's deadline was an intermediate deliverable. It's likely that many of you will, like for instance, of all the pieces I saw, Sarah's Q&A of Diane Fiol from Cranston High School was pretty close to polished. Sarah, that was an excellent piece. Sarah used a Q&A structure where you literally have Sarah asking a question and then Diane, the Cranston High School teacher, providing the answer. And you hear Sarah's voice very clearly and you hear the educator's voice very clearly. It's a very polished and strong piece. But
it's Sarah Vincelet, though, right? I didn't do that.
Correct. It's Sarah Vincelet, not you. Exactly. So some of the work that you have is more cooked than others. But one of the things that's cool about a blog is that it's endlessly revisable. So okay. You're going to continue to develop your blog and your YouTube video, and you kind of should be thinking, what kind of information can the blog provide and what kind of information can the YouTube video provide, so that together it makes a very nice package. I think the important thing to think about is, well, you're representing somebody else. So the information that you provide needs to be accurate, and it needs to be somewhat flattering, right? Nobody wants to be written about in a way that makes them look crappy, right? So I think the idea of working to make a piece that's, informative, somewhat flattering to the subject, and representing your understanding of digital learning, it's not an easy thing to do. So I think the project gives you an opportunity to exercise a lot of creativity and to do some synthesis of what you've learned. What other questions do you have about this interview a Rhode Island educator?
Alan, about the partner thing, because you asked me that yesterday and I wasn't sure.
Right. So me and Sarah are partners, right? But are we interviewing two different educators? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think last week when we talked, we said you guys should be partners for your final project.
Oh, so this is something different?
That's strategy thing. You guys don't need to partner on this interview a Rhode Island educator unless you want to.
Okay.
You have to have a partner for the final project. When we talk about the final project, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But thank you for bringing up that question, because I think a bunch of people got confused about that. I'd like you to be partners for the whole class. That'd be awesome. But for this interview a Rhode Island educator, it's optional.
Okay. All right. So the final project is different from the YouTube video?
Correct.
Okay, wow. Okay, cool.
Okay, so we'll talk about that next, unless there's any other questions about the interview of Rhode Island Educator.
Um, so the final, it's due November 15th, right?
November 5th.
Okay, that's when everything's due?
The interview of Rhode Island Educator is due, the YouTube video and the blog final project due November 5th.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
Yep. So one thing I think is really important to think about is what's the shape of that, what images, what language, what sound do you use in that YouTube video to communicate. One thing that's really cool is almost all of the Rhode Island educators who are leaders in the field are going to be at the October 25th, that's the Saturday, technology conference at the Providence Convention Center. So that is one way to get those people on video. Lots of those people will be coming to that conference, and certainly that is one easy way to get them on camera. And of course, going into their school and doing an interview with them, that's another way. And then you get the added benefit of getting to shoot images of the school and the location and the whatever, the environment. But I think the idea is to be creative in terms of how you execute this YouTube video. That's why I suggested that you check out some of those free tools, including the animation tool, the infographic tool, because anybody who's watched YouTube videos knows that you don't actually have to use video to make a YouTube video. Hey, wait a minute. What do you think I mean by that? You don't have to use video to make a YouTube video? Sarah or Alan, can you explain that?
Maybe you could just have a still frame and talk the whole time.
You sure can.
Yep.
You can use PowerPoint slides and voiceover and make a YouTube video. How else could it be that you might not even need to use video to make a YouTube video?
The Screen-O-Matic, is that what you're talking about?
With Screencast-O-Matic, you can make a video of whatever's on your computer screen, like even this conversation we're having right now. Yeah, so basically you can make a video of your screen, right? And whatever you have on your screen can be part of your YouTube video. Yeah.
You can also use your computer. I'm not savvy with it, but there are programs on like the Macs, and you can like cut and paste videos and like stop them, and like, yeah, if you're really good with that, you can do that.
Yeah. In fact, I have this really cool tool on my smartphone called Videolicious. Videolicious. Uh-oh. Who said that background? Not me? Me? Could be. Is it gone now? No. Okay, Alan. Sarah, you put on in your background. Making me squeeze you.
I didn't hear you.
Somebody's got.
Alan, you do.
It's definitely not me.
It's going up and down.
Okay, I'm going to mute him. All right, let's see if it goes away now. Alan, I'm muting you and see what's happening. Now does it go away?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Woohoo!
Sorry.
No problem. No, we'll let you talk when you figure out your how to get that other window closed.
Or maybe he can like hang up and join the call again.
It's probably that one. He's got a window open somewhere. He's got a bunch of tabs open in the window open, and once he closes that window, the problem will be solved. Okay. Well, Alan, we think your work. Oh no! Now I muted him. Now I'm going to unmute him. Okay. Can I do that? Can I unmute him?
I still see the mute on his face. Yeah.
Hold on here. Okay. Okay, Alan. Oh no, it's definitely. No, I gotta mute you. Ooh, that's weird. Okay. Yeah, it has something to do with the sound. So, Alan, you're gonna have to give a verbal signal like this when you want to talk, right? Then I'll unmute you. All right. All right. So let's take a look. All right. let's go back to the class structure, and we'll talk about the other assignment, because that's where, in a way, your biggest challenge is for this coming up week. So we go back up to the main. If you click on that this little icon here, that takes you back to the home page, right? And let's go to the final project. So we are creating, our job is to create increased public awareness of digital learning in Rhode Island. You're going to work with a partner, and that's a team. And first you're going to develop a proposal. And this is like what happens in the workplace in any professional communication setting. Before you get started on a project, you develop a proposal. And that proposal involves a statement of the problem and what you plan to do to accomplish or move toward the goal. I'm going to give you a little structure and a plan for how to do that. You're just going to write me an email. That's what your proposal is going to be. It's a long email. I'm going to respond to your email, and then you're going to develop the plan, and you're going to create a set of materials, and then you're going to create a final screencast that shares your whole story. So that whatever you do could include a whole bunch of different things, and I don't really want to limit you, because you should be using your own creativity to figure out who is a target audience that you can identify, how can you increase their understanding of digital literacy, and what can time, right? So step one, get a partner. And I asked you guys if you would tweet out the name of your partner, and it looks like lots of you did that, so I was really pleased to see that almost everybody has a partner. Then send me an email, and it's going to have all these elements. Who's the target audience? What are the key messages? Who are you going to feature or showcase? We learned from Kira Keene that the most important way we can increase public awareness of digital learning in Rhode Island is to tell stories about what's already happening here in Rhode Island, right? So, and then how will you communicate those ideas? What would be some of the elements or the key messages? And how will the two of you as team members work together, right? So you'll have about a month to develop some resources and materials and a strategy and create materials that allow you to speak to your target audience. And then you'll create a little presentation that really shows your whole strategy, right? Talking through why you made the choices you made and what were your challenges and how you did your project. So in a way, this is an opportunity for you to develop, to demonstrate that you've learned something about digital learning, to demonstrate that you've gained some of the core learning outcomes from this course, and to develop something that can become part of your portfolio so that when you graduate, you can proudly show off these materials and say, look, this is why you should hire me. This is what I can do. In a way, there's nothing more practical than having an actual work product that represents a creative set of ideas that you created from scratch yourself and you executed. So now, questions about the final project. What are your questions?
Well, it looks like did Alan say first November 5th? Because it looks like it's October 15th, November 19th, and December.
Yep. So realize that the video where you interview a Rhode Island educator, that's hanging out as a separate project from your campaign. The campaign is worth 400 points, 40% of your class grade. The video of the Rhode Island educator is worth 200 points, and then there's 200 more multimedia reflective essays. Those are the components of this class. That's how I'm going to grade you. So the deadlines are different because they're different pieces of work.
Okay.
Good question, Sarah. Thanks for asking that, because I bet a lot of people were confused about that. What other questions do you have? Okay, I want to share with you a couple of things to get your creative juices flowing that I hope you consider as possibilities for your own campaign. Let's go back to the homepage and back to our week on Network Matters. I put these down here because I wanted to give you a sense of how there already are some resources that you might exploit to develop your own element of the campaign. So the first thing to look at is this thing called Digital Learning Poll Rhode Island. As part of my efforts to increase digital learning in Rhode Island, I've created, working with a team of people in Rhode Island, a 12-item survey to gauge public opinion of Rhode Island residents about digital learning. I'm going to show this to you right now and invite you to think about how you could use this poll for your own work. Here it is. You enter your zip code. Mine is 02840. And then you agree or disagree with a variety of things, right? Basically, if you want, you can add comments, right? Now, what's really cool about that is I want to show you the back end, because you have access to this data if you want to use this data. We have already 177 people have taken this poll, even though we just created a week ago. Why? We've been tweeting it out through Facebook and through Twitter. Take a look at the results that we have already found in just our first couple of days, right? People from a whole bunch of different zip codes. We can see when we look at the charts, this one says students of all ages should have access both in and out of school to digital media, new media like websites, ebooks, mobile apps, games, and social media. About 50% of people strongly disagree, but then the other half of them are not so sure, right? So here's one. Using, analyzing, and creating digital media will not only give students skills needed for the future, but will help them identify misinformation. Again, about 40% strongly agree, another 40% agree, but there's about 10% who are not as likely to agree with those statements. And it goes this way all the way through, with some really controversial ones, like online in-school filtering policies should not block online resources like Google. There's a 12 plus 6, maybe 20% of people say, oh, actually, no, we want filtering in school, right? And then the most controversial item so far seems to be about cell phones. Check out this one. Oh, this one's pretty controversial. K-12 students should learn coding and software development skills. Lots of people don't agree with that, right? Only 22% strongly agree, 38% agree, and then a lot more are not sure if coding or learning to program should be part of the school. And people aren't quite sure about whether we should offer students the opportunity to take 4-credit courses online in the K-12 context. So I invite you to think about how survey data might be. How you might use that data, how you might share that poll with certain target audiences. If you're targeting parents, or if you're targeting college students, or if you're targeting grandparents. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the RIDE Technology Day, which I'm really hoping that I get to meet all. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 15 students in this class, and I'm really hoping that I can meet all of you on Saturday, October 25th at the RIDE Technology Conference. I'm doing a couple of presentations at this conference, so obviously I'm hoping you come to my session, And you can learn more by registering for free here, taking a look at the conference agenda, right? But there are 3 ways that you could play a role at this technology conference in a way that would really contribute to your work, your academic work for this course. One thing is you can join me on the podium. I need at least 3 students to come and talk about what you're learning in this course. I want 3 students to come join me on the podium and talk about you made a blog using WordPress, you used Flipgrid, you are learning to Twitter, right? And what's that like from your point of view? I need another 3 students who would be willing to kind of hang out and talk to teachers and network and interview them. That could be terrific for your final project. And I need at least 3 students to participate as part of the production crew to videotape key events. If you've never made a videotape before, this is a great opportunity to get some practical experience that you can put on your resume and a production credit, because under the leadership of Jonathan Freesom, the Assistant Director of the Media Education Lab, we're going to make a short video about this event, and you can be part of that. You can be part of the video crew, the sound crew. You can do some interviewing, and that just means showing up on the day and being a team member. So I would invite you to let me know by email if you would like to play one of the roles for RIDE Technology Day. There's 2 more things that I invite you to look at as you start brainstorming your work. One is to take the Learning Motivations quiz and think about how you might be able to use that quiz in your own project. And to do that, you just click on the quiz. It's one of those horoscopes like you see online, where if you answer the questions, it gives you, it tells you your horoscope. And then do review the simple production tools that I've put up here on this website, including Infogram, where you can make your own infographic, Screencast-O-Matic, where you can make a video using your computer screen, Animoto, where you can use still and moving images and sound, Snagit, which is another screencasting tool, Videolicious, and Powtoons, which is where you can make an animation using a simple, free online tool. All right, so in my view, there's some low-hanging fruit or building blocks that might inspire your creativity around your final project. All right, what questions do you have now?
I don't have any. I gotta look it over first before I have questions.
Okay. The biggest project that you and Alan will try to figure out this week is answers to these questions. So let me go back to the thinking about a week from today. You're going to write me an email. One way to do that, first of all, would be watch this way cool video and think a little bit about what the implications of it are for Rhode Island.
Okay.
Then check out this great planning tool, How to Write a Communication Strategy. This is a really cool free download, very simple, and it says if you're going to draw up a communication strategy, it's an art, not a science, and there are lots of different ways of approaching the task, but you're going to have to talk me through these elements. What are your objectives? Who are your audiences? What's your message? What tools and activities are you going to do to complete the project? What resources do you need? What's your time scale? And how will you know you did a good job? Right? That's a really simple structure, but if I get an email from you that answers those questions, you're going to get a glowing woohoo from me as a response, and maybe some suggestions and ideas. So I feel like this planning tool, very simple, can be a great structure for you two to work together on, to think really hard about what you can do. Now, if you think too big and your big project sounds like it's going to cost $100,000 and you'll never get it done by December, I'm going to write you back and go, fail. So do something that's doable. Do something modest and that you can do well and that can be done with integrity, right? Because the idea is it's better to do something small and at really high level than to do something too ambitious that you can't do well.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So I thought maybe what I'd like to do now for just about 10 minutes is a little tiny mini lecture on my friend Howard Rheingold. Okay? Because it turns out that the last 2 chapters of this book are like, honestly, I read it and I thought, holy heck, he just stole my dance card altogether. Right? And when people say to me, Renee, you know, how is it, you know, how do you manage to do so many things, and you've got a lot of things going on, and it's, you know, you're really passionate about this topic, and it's like, I didn't even know till I read this book that I'm just following his instructions. I didn't know that I was even doing it. It just felt like breathing to me. Breathing, it felt natural. But what's really cool is that Howard Rheingold is kind of offering a career advice, right? Career advice. And one of the things that I think is really something that every undergraduate should do, right? And I don't know about graduate students, you've probably already done this, but he says, make a drawing of everyone you know in your entire universe. Every person that you know, make a chart, right? So that you understand who is your social network. Because when students ask me, because I'm very good at helping students get jobs, okay? My students have worked for MTV, for ESPN, for the Discovery Channel, for the New York Times, for the Boston Globe. I've gotten students jobs in some of the best jobs that exist in this country. And how do I do it? I say, okay, make a list of everyone you know and put them in a circle. Who in your network can help you, right? Because what's cool about Chapter 5 is that Howard Rheingold starts with that whole 7 degrees of separation, right? Mm-hmm. How, you know, every actor has all been in a movie with, Kevin Bacon, right? And each one of us can get an email to the Pope in 6 emails, right? We're all connected to each other, and I think what happens in undergraduate years is that people don't realize how to take advantage of their networks, or they don't think big enough about how their networks can help them accomplish their goals. So Howard Rheingold in this chapter basically says that if you cultivate your network, and if you intentionally look for connections between the people you know and who you want to know, that you increase your social power. And if you think about it, your whole life you've been trying to figure out how to get and hold social power. That is absolutely key. As you learn to be a good public speaker, to persuade people which restaurant you want to go to or what movie you want to see, we're all in the business of trying to get and hold on to social power. And the game gets played through our email relationships, our Facebook relationships, our online and professional relationships, our employers, our colleagues, our friends, and a big part of why people go to parties, right, is that it turns out that the people you meet at parties can often not just be people to have fun with, to play with, to dance with, or to get drunk with, but also people who can help you in other parts of your life, right? They're people who can help you find a date. They're people who can help you find a job. And so almost every piece of advice that Rheingold had says, analyze your social network and start paying attention to bridging across groups. The most successful communicators, he said, are the people who can be bridges. That's right around page 207. He says, if you want to be successful, be the bridge between groups. Be the jock who's also the theater major, right?
I saw that.
That is powerful, right? You're a theater major, right? But you're also like a wrestler. Turns out wrestlers and theater majors like kind of don't hang out together, right? But if you do, now you know both groups. So be a bridge builder. Now, I think both of you kind of are bridge builders. If you were to analyze your social networks, in what way do you bridge groups in your life? Tell me about your own identity as a bridge builder, because that's a key to being a successful communicator. How are you a bridge builder, Alan?
I'm a bridge builder because I like introducing friends. Like sometimes if I know this one friend and then I know this other friend, I'm like, oh my God, you guys would totally be friends, you know? So that's one way. But you said theater and wrestling. Like if they were both that, they could be a professional wrestler. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Right. And you said Mexican wrestling, Cuba Libre, or what's the name of the Mexican wrestlers? Those guys, that's theater and wrestling to the ultimate, right? Those Mexican wrestlers. Sarah, how are you a bridge builder? And in what ways do you have groups of people where you are the connective tissue between those groups?
You mean on the social network?
Yeah, or in any part of your life.
Well, I think lately, because it's really in my head right now, is using the Twitter tool for my COM 100 students. I have 2 classes, and I tried to bridge them together using the COM 100 hash. And I was like, get to know your classmates, because you might have something in common. You might end up working together in a group. So this is how we're clustering them.
Nice. So your 2 groups of COM 100 students you're using Twitter to bridge, to connect them with each other. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Me, I'm a bridge builder between 2 disciplines because my home discipline is in media studies. That's where I live, with media professionals, journalists, and video producers, and web design people. And I'm also in education with K-12 teachers and with school districts and superintendents and people in that side. So I have exploited the fact that I know journalists and media people, and I know educators, and that's my bridge identity. I also think I'm pretty good at bridging geographies. I have a lot of international friends because over the years I'm really attracted to different cultures, and I'm kind of curious about like meeting people and being friends with people. So whenever I've met someone from a foreign country, I always try to stay in touch with them. So I have a friend in Kuwait, and through her I've met like other people in Kuwait, right? So, and that's just because I feel like I get to learn a lot from when I meet people from foreign countries. So I also like to think of myself as a bridge builder between people in foreign countries. So this idea of analyzing your social network, thinking about bridge, could be useful for your final project. How could it help you for you to analyze your own social network as part of this project in increasing public awareness about digital literacy or digital learning in Rhode Island?
Well, I mean, for me, like my identity on Twitter and Facebook are completely different. Like my Facebook is social and my Twitter is completely like for school and instructing. That's how I do it. I haven't really bridged that gap yet. But for me on Facebook, I would love to ask parents how they feel about certain ideas of digital literacy. Like I would use that tool to kind of market to them because I have a lot of parents, friends
Right. So in a way, your Facebook is where you could reach a lot of parents of young children, and
Right.
that could be a target audience, your Facebook friends who have kids.
Right.
Cool. Alan, how could your social network be useful for your
for increasing
Don't base it on an idea. Go from an idea.
Okay. I think I don't know. I'm lost right now.
Well, it's a complicated thing because parents are parents on the social network. That might not be so useful, right?
But he might be able to get some really insightful things from his friends that are his age. Like, are they for or against digital? Because before I met Alan, I didn't realize his position on how he felt about it in classroom. So that would be a really good source of information for that.
Right. I think that's right, and I also think that in some ways the experiences that people have had in the last 10 years going through school in Rhode Island probably will affect their sense of optimism or pessimism about whether or not Rhode Island is up for the challenge of digital learning.
Yeah, I could get a lot of college students' perspectives because I take half my classes online anyways, and I know some friends who do the same. You know.
Oh, so you guys have in common the fact that you both have taken a lot of online classes. That is a possible thing to exploit. Maybe that is an angle to develop because you both feel like you've actually had some benefit associated with that.
True.
A lot of people don't even know what it means to take an online class. Maybe that's an angle that is unique to your own lived experience that you could do a lot with. Cool idea. All right, so I think Rheingold's idea that start with who you know and what you know as a place to advance and then stretch out from there is really awesome. Now, he also basically invites us to think about how to cultivate our personal networks and how to establish ourselves as a brand. And sometimes that's controversial. Oh, he's so cute. Sometimes that's a little bit controversial, the idea of thinking about your brand and thinking about yourself as a brand. But he's really developed a pretty powerful argument here in Chapter 5 about the power of when you represent your story as a brand, you actually increase your social capital, right? And that really in the contemporary economy, the adjectives people use to describe you, your reputation, and how other people count on you, those are actually assets that contribute to your economic success. And he makes a pretty good argument about that. And he also, I thought, was really powerful. He basically talks about this idea of flattened hierarchy. I think this is really cool. He says, back in the old days, organizations were really hierarchical, right? You know, the general was up here, and then there was the corporals, and then there was the sergeants, and then down here were the privates, and you basically always saw yourself in some kind of power relationship that was hierarchical. He says right now the internet and digital culture are kind of flattening that so that basically those power relationships have shifted, and he basically says that in some ways it's seeing yourself as part of a network actually gives you more power and increases your economic value in the marketplace more than if you see yourself as, like, I'm here on the, in the mid-level manager ring, or I'm here down here where the workers are. And he gives an example, a historical example of the difference between northern Italy and southern Italy. This is right around page 218, 219. He says when they analyzed why the north of Italy was so rich and productive with factories and jobs and robust economy and vibrant culture. And the south of Italy was so poor and so weak and so much unemployment. He basically, they discover that the hierarchical structures where there was so a hierarchical structure is often based on take orders, do what you're told, and don't trust anybody, right?
Right.
And that set of attitudes actually discourages innovation, discourages entrepreneurship, and basically maintains power in the hands of a few. By contrast, in the northern Italian cities, where there was a more flattened network, where people weren't stuck in one role, that they just had to stay in that level, where they could actually have some creativity, those structures promoted innovation, promoted kind of a rich middle class, and created trust. And so he actually gives a lot of cool advice. He says we have to start off from a position of trust in all our relationships. Trust and goodwill need to be assumed starting places. And that when people start relationships from a position of mistrust, you never get beyond that, right? You get trapped. So I thought that was actually fascinating, and I feel like in my own life I've benefited a lot from my initial impulses, trust and respect. And then you got to do something to earn my mistrust, right? I mean, I will, if you do something where I mistrust you, you lose my trust. But I approach people with that spirit of trust, and I feel like it's repaid me more times than I've been burned by it. So what are your thoughts about this idea about hierarchies, trust, mistrust, and this idea that being in trusting flat hierarchies is probably better for career success? Does that make sense in the world you live in, or is Rheingold just crazy? What are your thoughts?
Well, my experience, I had like a love-hate with this, because my experience working was always a hierarchy. The org chart, we lived by the org chart, that's how things were done. And if I ever suggested anything that was like awesome and creative, I didn't get credit, my manager got credit. So I kind of oppressed my ideas and didn't share them anymore, because I never got that. Nobody ever patted me on the back, or it was like someone was stealing my ideas. So when I first heard that, I was like, okay, I want to trust people. I'm like, yeah, but I want everyone else in the room to feel the same way too, I don't want to have a misfit in there who's then going to run away and take credit for everyone else's ideas. Do you know what I mean?
I sure do. I think that's a very powerful example. Thank you for sharing it, because it really does illustrate the idea that because you felt trapped in that hierarchy, you became less willing to share your innovative ideas, right? Because you weren't getting rewarded for it. Alan, what's your take on this idea about trust, mistrust, and social hierarchies in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship and career advice?
I like the trust at first angle, and somebody has to earn your mistrust, because if you just right off the bat mistrust everybody, you're going to have a hard time building successful bridges, I feel. In terms of the whole hierarchy thing, sometimes it's necessary just to, just kind of to get stuff done, you know what I mean? But I see what you're saying. I feel like in an ideal company, everybody would have part ownership, because then they would have more invested interest in seeing the overall success of the company. That's kind of more flat, which is something that I always thought was cool.
Yeah, nice. And I feel like that's a cool way to think about the idea that when we trust, we create incentives to trust, right? So it's almost like incentives to be part owners in a way. But it's also true, and Sarah, you captured it right, is that when you enter into when you become part of a system where trust isn't part of the gig and reward systems are hierarchical and not flat, then we all adapt. We all adapt to our circumstances. And Rheingold is basically saying that the internet and social media create new opportunities for people to develop power in different ways than we used to be able to do in just an organization or a business or in a community setting. That the internet gives us new ways to have influence because we can have influence with people that live far away and have shared interests with ours, even though we're not geographically in the same place. So I actually think that some parts of Rheingold's ideas have a lot of utility for you thinking about your strategic communication goal. And the key thing is through dialogue. That's why the partner thing is so important. The way creative people find creative ideas is through dialogue. And usually it takes a good amount of talking until you find an idea where you both go, ah. So take time this week, COM 410 students, to engage in that kind of dialogue, to find an idea that you think is workable, doable, and that you like. Because if you don't like the idea, it's going to be a waste of time for everybody. So, yeah. So I think we have kind of reached the end of the agenda for this week's class. I'm just going to go over my little screencast just one more time just to make sure I haven't missed anything. But this week, you're going to be working with your partner to develop a communication strategy. You're going to email that to me next Wednesday before 7 o'clock. What I'd like you to do here, see how it says communicate to coordinate? Use this scratch pad. That's just a Titan pad to coordinate your communication strategy. We don't want teams doing the exact same thing. So once you've come up with your idea, just throw a little summary of it here on this Etherpad, because we kind of want to make sure that we're reaching a bunch of different target audiences with a bunch of different strategies instead of doing all exactly the same thing. Like if all the teams did their target audience was college students, we would kind of we would lose the whole point, right? So claim your strategy by putting it up on the scratch pad when you get it. So that will help fertilize more ideas that way. Okay, I think under Ask Questions and Get Answers, just one nice thing. I think, Taylor, we have answered your question. Do we need to have interviewed our educator before we blog about them? And the answer is no. Eventually, your blog and your YouTube video will all be in one package, right? So feel free to revise your blog as you get more information, right? And I think this is Brianna. Brianna, you also asked, what is the rubric and where, how will we be graded? And so I just pulled that from the website. There's the link. And I also posted the actual criteria for grading those blogs as well. So take a look at that there. All right, so I wonder, do you guys have any more questions or issues to raise about COM 410, the UnClassroom, before I let you go? All right, you guys seem like happy campers. I am so grateful. Alan and Sarah, you have joined us. I'm thrilled that Taylor, McCall, Kelly, Meg, Jordan, Brianna, Sarah, Evan, Carly, your essay on Carrie Sorensen for Highlander Charter School was amazing. Alan, Sarah, Kirsten, Allegra, Andrew, and Bill, we're glad you're here as part of the 410 community. Someday we hope to see you online. But in the meantime, I'm Renee Hobbs. This is COM 410. I'll see you guys next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. And yeah, happy October. Bye.
Bye.